There is nothing that I love more than coffee in the morning. And the reason we have coffee, which is one of the most beautiful things God has ever blessed us with, we have it because Christians beat the Muslims. Glory to Jesus Christ. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to The Voice of Reason. And today, you are actually going to be enjoying coffee with reason. Yes, this entire episode is going to be about coffee and why coffee is so important, and how a lot of people don't even realize that coffee actually plays a big part in the role of Christian history. I love coffee. I'm like a crazy caffeine head. I love coffee in the morning, in the middle of the day, afternoon. I love coffee. It's my favorite thing. There's nothing better. There's very few things that I love more than waking up nice and early in the morning and sipping hot coffee. And the reason that I wanted to make this video talking about coffee is because of the history of coffee in the West. And the reason that we have coffee in the West is actually because of the Catholic Church. That's right. The Catholic Church is the reason that we in the West have coffee. It's true. You see, coffee goes all the way back to the Crusades. Yes, the Crusades. It's these holy wars in which the Christians were fighting against Islamic expansion into Europe. The Muslims were trying to take over Europe, and the Christians, they had to fight off the Muslims. The Crusades began at the end of the 11th century, and they went for a few hundred years actually. Well, in the 16th century, there was a particular battle that took place between Christians and Muslims. And this particular battle, the Christians beat the Muslims. They were able to fend them off. They beat them in the fight. Well, after the Muslims were defeated, Christians, they went in to their tents where the Muslim soldiers were camped out. And they went into these tents and they discovered coffee beans and coffee itself. And you have to understand that in the West, coffee was unknown. They didn't have coffee in the West in the Middle Ages. That's something that happened in the middle of the Middle Ages, that coffee was kind of discovered, because coffee in Europe, came from the Middle East and from Southwest Asia, and it was the Muslims that learned how to cultivate coffee beans and how to make it into a drink, and the Westerners knew nothing about this. So they discovered the coffee beans, they discovered the coffee, and they realized that coffee was the reason that the Muslims had expanded as far as they did in the Holy War, because coffee is what allowed these Muslim soldiers to fight all night long. Christians didn't know. Christians were actually lost a lot in the Crusades. The Crusades really weren't successful for Christians, and the reason for it is because the Muslim forces were just stronger, and the reason that they were stronger is because they were able to fight more. Like I said, they were able to fight all night long because they had coffee, and Christians didn't have coffee. But after this particular battle in the middle of the 16th century, they discovered coffee, and at first the Christians, because they didn't know what it was, they had never seen it before, they thought that maybe coffee was like some evil potion that allowed anyone who drank it to destroy enemies. And at first they were very cautious about it because they didn't know what it was, and it came from these enemies, and they were like afraid of coffee. They didn't know what to do, and they're like, this coffee is the reason that our enemies were able to have been beating us. It should be destroyed. So they gathered everything and they actually took it back to the Pope. It was Pope Clement VIII, and they presented to him the coffee, and they said, Pope Clement, we think that this is the reason that we've been losing up until this point, is because these Muslims, they've had coffee. This is how they've been so powerful, and this is bad, Pope Clement. We need to get rid of this. We need to destroy it all, because this is the reason that we've been losing. They thought that it was like an evil drink of the devil. They called it the devil's drink, I believe. That's how they referred it to. It's the devil's drink. This is the reason we're losing. And Pope Clement VIII, he said, the devil's drink, huh? Well, Pope Clement VIII actually tried it. He tried the drink. He said, well, let's see. So he sipped it. And Pope Clement VIII said, this is delicious. There's no way that the devil can make something so good and delicious. So no, this comes from God. And he baptized it and he said, from now on in the West, we will have coffee. Yes, coffee did not exist in the West. It was unknown to Westerners. And it was because the Christians were able to beat the Muslims in this particular fight that coffee was discovered. And at first, they thought that it was bad and that it should have been destroyed. They thought it was the devil's drink, but it was the Pope, Pope Clement VIII, that baptized coffee and said that it is good for all men and women to drink coffee because coffee is delicious, and it sure is. So thank God for Pope Clement VIII. Thank God for our coffee that we have. And all of you, who, if you love coffee and you're in the West, you better be thankful that Pope Clement VIII allowed coffee to come into the West. That's right. If you love coffee, you can thank the Catholic Church. You can thank a Catholic Pope. So thank you, Pope Clement VIII, for allowing us to have this beautiful coffee. All glory to Jesus Christ now and forever for blessing us with coffee. And thank God for those Christian soldiers who whooped the Muslims at that fight. I love coffee so much. I love sipping coffee, and I love talking to you guys. Maybe once a week, my producer's going to come over early in the morning, and he's going to film me drinking this beautiful, amazing, delicious substance that I just can't have enough of. And I'm going to sip it while I talk to you guys, and I speak my mind. And I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. Maybe we can call it Coffee with Reason. What do you think? Coffee with Reason, is that a good name for this segment in this series? In this very first episode, which is episode 1 of Coffee with Reason, I talked about the origins of coffee here in the West. Maybe Coffee with Reason could be like history lessons, and I could talk about history, or I could do apologetics, or I could just talk about whatever I want to talk about. But if you guys have any suggestions, if you guys would like anything specific while I'm sipping my coffee with you guys, you let me know. Drop it down in the comments. And I'd love to do this regularly because I love my coffee, I love the church, I love the Lord Jesus Christ, and I love all of you guys. So let's share it together. So when we do these, I hope that you guys have your mugs of coffee as well. And salute, cheers, and blessings. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'll see you next time. God bless.